And suddenly I was like, wow, the more you just get into that simple, non egotistical way of anchoring, the simpler life gets, the more the dramas and the dross drops away.
So through your trajectory, you've been with me for 5 years. How fast did you see changes? And then the bigger thing is that I know you've gone through a lot of detox, some heavy stuff that you've gone through. Let's talk about that um, because I want to. Well, let's just hear your story because I don't want to, precondition it in any way. So, what made you do the work? Because it is hard work. It's not for everybody, guys. Would you agree with me there, David? If you're not like, how else could I say, balls to the walls and really wanting to find yourself, would that be fair to say? Right?
Absolutely.
This is not
Absolutely.
for you, by the way. You know, go out and dilly dally with something else, but this is straight out, it's the real stuff. It's the real deal. And it's not just, well, I provide the knowledge or XI provides the knowledge. Are you good enough to take that knowledge and run with it? Because you have to do your part. And you did. And this is where you are. And I want to talk about that as well on your abilities and what you're doing now. So, but before we get to that part, so tell me about what made you stick? Because I don't know if a lot of people, and a lot of people do, and they have great opportunities ahead of them once they conquer themselves. But what's that stick to itiveness? I guess you could call it that made you go through. It's like shit. This is too hard. I don't want to do that. But then you come back to it.
I think one of the temptations of the new age and the healing industry is that
Mhm.
it's like the most incredible buffet. And it doesn't encourage singularity. It doesn't encourage almost like the
Uh,
Zen approach of just sitting and staring at a wall. I once met a Zen meditator and he was having an incredible presence. Said, "What do you do to get like you?" I goes, "Oh, I just sit and we stare at a wall." I was like, "No way am I doing that. I know so many other things that are far more sexier than that." And in a way, XI has that same rigor that
right.
I could see that whenever I ventured into tasting the buffet,
Mhm.
it would always degenerate me in some way, would always like a bit like you're going at velocity and it would pull me out of that trajectory of clearing, of consolidation, and it would pull me almost into like side bends and dead ends that previously felt like entertaining and euphoric and I'm doing this course this weekend and this training over here. And I'd
Mhm.
done a lot. I mean, I'd spent over 100K and I could see that it wasn't actually sort of giving me what XI was, and it
Mm.
was that daily rigor of getting into the 18 days and practicing it, either listening to what you were doing on the 18 days, putting it on loop, and then also learning to do it for myself without your
That's the
recordings,
key.
but applying the principles of locationality, my senses,
Mhm.
anchoring into the earth, all those things and building that discipline. And suddenly I was like, wow, the more you just get into that simple, non egotistical way of anchoring, the
Mhm.
simpler life gets, the more the dramas and the dross drops away.
Right.
And it's a tremendous commitment because you then need to detox physically, emotionally, psychologically, in ways that you think, what the hell's happening to me? What's Maz done to me to make me feel this crap? So there's all those phases where you go, maybe there's something really dark about Maz that I'm feeling this shit. And so
Right.
it starts to push on those areas that have, then you go, well, I'll go and do something else because it must be his fault that I'm feeling shit. So I'll go and do another course with a different teacher and that will soothe me. That'll make me feel better. And invariably, you might get that soothing, but you then almost amplify and bring back the distortion that was trying to clear, that was coming to the surface. The stench inside was suddenly, you could smell it, one could see, I could see it. And then as you learn to own that and release that, then the kind of relief and the expansion and the simplicity and the clarity that would form in my life would, there's no mistaking that that journey of going through those XI experiences of detox actually create so much purity and simplicity, and they clear the drama and the clag, the sense
Mhm.
of being stuck, but entertaining yourself to avoid the stuckness,
Right,
stagnation out. Does that
right.
answer your question?
It does, and it gives me a lot more questions to ask you. One of the things a lot of people ask me, and maybe David, you can answer this from your point of view, is that people go, well, I am at this level. I've done a master course with so and so. I've trained with, the biggest people there, and I didn't feel any detox. And then with you, Moss, I'm feeling all this shit, all this stuff. It must be you, or why didn't I feel the detox? Can you answer that?
When I sit down with someone now who's very uh, journeyed in their modality or with their
Mhm,
teacher or their discipline or their lineage, I just do something very simple. I say,
mhm,
let's just experience how it is to connect into your body and connect to the infinite presence that you are, to pure source, and then to
mhm.
feel that as an embodied state.
Right.
And they get it immediately. And they
Right.
can then feel what's inside them
Right.
as a kind of immediate felt sense. And so I think a lot of teachings are out there. They're like you send your psyche out there so you don't get to feel what's in here. And the
True.
mind is so entertained by that and it's so entranced in this level of, the illusion of the physical that it's happy to settle for that and to grow an expertise and a self-esteem around that knowledge. It's knowledge and even powers that come with that knowledge that don't clear out these places.
Okay. So, just to clarify for the audience, let me give you an example on what I see is that you're in your house, right? You live in a house. You really don't like the environment there for some reason. It's uncomfortable. So, other modalities would go, well, you know, you stay in your house with all the bullshit that's happening there, and then let's just go out and party somewhere else. Would that be fair to say?
That's it in a nutshell. Absolutely.
Right? Let's just go party somewhere else and you'll be fine. But then every time you come home, right, to a spouse or situation, you find yourself again. And it's not just the house, it's not a physical location. It's like every time you're alone, you find yourself in your home. Again, your identity. Does that make sense to you, David?
Yes.
Where it's
Yeah.
like, forget it. Forget yourself here. A godhead is out there, or a guru is out there. This modality will make you feel all this out here, but then at the day's end you got to come back to yourself at some point, and then you experience all that garbage, all that shit. So what xi would do is literally, it's like, hey, you can have all that stuff there, but let's clean out house first. Let's clean the house first. And then we can really party inside and outside. Would that be fair to say?
100%. Yeah.
So remember, guys, and let's get deeper into, say, the darkness, because you mentioned that as like, so was there a point in time that and this people who try, most people who just want more money, better health, relationships and all that stuff. Most of you, those individuals, and you're happy with that. And then, you do XI here and there, which is fine, which is totally fine. You got your money, you got your whatever, you're happy. That's all you need. That's perfect. But for people like you, there's another trajectory, right? Because those individuals, they go, well, I'll just finish high school or maybe college, and that's fine. But then, like people like you want like a PhD level, a master level, higher and higher, and whatever is above the PhD level, your own soul journey. For those individuals, you come to a fork in the road, I would call it, where you start thinking that I'm dark at some level. So, did that happen to you? Did you realize it, or were you aware of it? Can you tell us that story?
I've had a number of times when I felt that
Oh, a number of times.
perhaps.
Awesome.
I
Okay.
think quite early on, um, I had a dream about you coming to me as a vampire
Okay.
and with your vampire consort and offering me a room full of people to come and feed on. And
Wow.
I spoke to a friend about it I'd also introduced to XI, and she goes, "No,
Mhm,
that's your stuff. That's not Maz." And I was lucky to have some strong individuals around me, and I was like, "What do you mean it's my stuff? How dare you?"
mhm,
That sense. And yet, when I'd listened to you, I could see, hang on a minute, it isn't this guy. It's something in me. And I think
mm,
it's when you can go inwards and really face these demons, these vampires that
mhm.
want to masquerade as you
Right.
and imposter as you to trick me out of this kind of embodiment path of embodying XI, embodying these higher frequencies. There are so many traps like this that,
Mhm.
and it's developing that discernment. Because
Right.
how often have you met a teacher that is actually feeding on off you and you think it's great? So
Mhm.
it's that discernment of referencing back to you and going, actually, there's a purity to Maz that it's just not what my dream state was telling me.
That's so interesting because you go, there's so many teachers out there that would feed on you and it feels good. And then Moss wouldn't feel on you and then, feed on you. And then it's like, and you think that Moss is feeding on you. So isn't that kind of crazy how the mind plays tricks on you? Right. Yeah, and David, what you're talking about is exactly you get to a certain level, again, past college level, the PhD, the higher level, say, I guess I would call it consciousness. And this is where you really go inwards. I mean, before it was just like, when you're high school level, college level, before it's just like cleaning up the house, making it look clean and all that stuff so it's comfortable. But when you get to, your levels, David, it's more like, no, if you want to stay at that level, at the master level, PhD level, and really master yourself, master this reality and consciousness, what you have to do is like, you got to sometimes tear out those walls, that's got like, say, black mold behind them and, rat infested that you don't even know about. You hear it at night, things, critters moving around, when you're sleeping and you're quiet, you hear all these animals in your woodwork and, the basement joists and, the floorboards and all that stuff. But you go, shit, I don't want to do anything with that. Or, you have some pesticide that kills all that stuff. But when you get to those levels, you gotta tear that shit out of you, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely.
You
And
can't have any of that stuff. And then they don't wanna go away. And then that's where the thing flips around and it's like, "Hey, it's not the rats that are in you, it's the exterminator." And you start to blame the exterminator for all the rats and the bugs and, all the leakage and the black mold and, all the whatever that's in your house that, you're trying to fix. So can you talk about a little maybe on the mind tricks?
yeah,
Because I think a lot of people get tricked out by that. And what was your experiences on those mind games that your internal self or I don't know, lack of a better word, the devil inside plays upon you?
I think wherever there's a deficit in me, it can then look at you where you're in a kind of mature kind of expansion
Mhm.
in all areas of your life, and where I maybe where I felt inadequate, I can then see you in your radiance, in your success, in your dominance, and then go become resentful and start to, oh, well, he's boastful, oh, he's arrogant. So
Right.
that's one level of trickery.
Mhm.
Um, I think another level of trickery is all the religious programs that
Mm.
get somewhere like the Emperor's New Clothes. They're just the religion's greenwashed again, wrapped up with new dressings. And there's a lot of sacrifice programs. Um, there's a lot of victim programs, so that they're almost protecting themselves. They're almost
Right.
installed in such a way that they will trick you to keep them, so that you
Mhm.
keep on sacrificing yourself,
Mm.
and therefore use those people that could have liberated you and turn it round on them that they're the baddie, and I'm the goodie. Whereas really, there's like a ring pass knot with humanity, like a control cloud that
Mhm.
keeps people at a certain level of consciousness that prevents them cracking through that
Right.
limitation in human consciousness. And that's something that you carry, you illuminate that kind of schism in humanity, that dark cloud belt that
Mhm.
keeps the collective consciousness in, particularly in like the new age, at a certain frequency level where you
Mhm.
can't break in traditional um, trainings that I've done, you can't break through that belt.
Mm. Okay. Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's been a lot of my experience is almost like just staying with the program through the pain of it and facing that that was in me and I've got to break it and clear it
Mhm.
and dominate that inner space so that I'm in charge and not that whatever that family control or religious control and sacrifice frequency is
Mm.
that's
Yeah.
masculine.
And I just want to share an experience as well, especially with women. Guys, if women have been abused and taken advantage of and all that, and from childhood or later on as dating and all that stuff, and then that stuff has to clear out. Even guys, by the way, it's the craziest thing, David. I think you've gone through with some of your clients, and I want to talk about what you do now, and what's different. Although you still practice whatever that you do with XI, what's the difference? Um, but I want to get back to the story where, you know, if you're releasing abuse patterns, and even guys, by the way, um, and I want to ask you that as well, David, is that when you're releasing abuse patterns, you know, I tend to be that surrogate person for that all the abuse that ever has happened to you. There's two reasons for it. One, there's a trust factor. So you start to trust me. You start to, and what does trust mean, for people? Well, it means a lot of things. You start to get intimate with me. Even a guy, again, especially women, okay? Um, so what does intimacy? What defines intimacy? Intimacy is where you start to get to a point in a relationship with someone that you can share your deepest darkest secrets, and you'll be comfortable because they have your back. They know that they're going to provide a support mechanism for you to release those insecurities, right, David? So, and this will help you with your clients as well, because I'm sure you kind of get this. Um, so when that happens, women especially start to feel very intimate with me, although there's no section, and then sexual tension and all that might start to happen. Again, it's not my part. It's just that I know everything about you. Well, I can read you, I can analyze you. So that's getting pretty intimate, right? According to the definition of what humans define intimacy. And then you start to share that with me. And then it gets to a pivotal point where there's a breaking point. You start to get really strong from, say, what we do with XI, right? Together, I've helped you come to your highest level so far. You can jump to that next level, that next stage of your life. And then you release all this behind. But it's a shattering of your old identity. It literally is a breakage of your old identity. So, what do? You anchor onto me. You literally, a visual, you hold on to me as, again, whatever behind you or whatever supported you falls apart. Okay. And then what happens is that you feel that intimacy or that connection. And again, sometimes it turns sexual if you're not aware of it, even for guys, by the way, even if you're straight, it happens all the time. And then there's no there's no support of your abuse patterns. So you would have to look at me, and you look at me and it's like, shit, I trust you. But then all the abuse patterns, I become that mirror for you. And then you see all the abuse patterns, not in the people who have abused you, but in yourself as you look at me or you connect with me. That is the point in time. So I've turned into from somebody that's intimate for you into your abuser, your accuser. And then you start accusing me. This is the really pivotal time, no matter if it's this example or anything else, guys. This is the real pivotal time where you see that, oh, I've been abused before. It's not Moss. I've been taken advantage of before. It's not Moss. Don't credit it to me. Some people, they get mad at me. We get emails. It's like, Moss abused me in my dreams. Moss, sexually abused me. Moss did this. Moss did this. Moss touched me the wrong way, and all this stuff. It really isn't me, guys. Right? It literally is you having to attach an outside individual for attacking you or abusing you. It's about you getting rid of that internal pattern. So if you stay there, if you just hold on to yourself, not me, if you just observe that that's the pattern that you're releasing, it just like disappears. And then the connection between, say, you and I would come back to go, oh, thanks, Moss. I needed that. I just needed that support so I can break away from this. And then you're good to go. And then, again, that honoring connection, not sexual connection or anything like that, disappears. And then again, we honor each other as, again, human beings. Does that make sense? Was that okay,
Abs-
David?
Absolutely. I think coming back to the very first thing I said about you is Maz the man.
Yeah.
Your presence as a male
Right.
is
Oh.
is what penetrates the distortion, the pain, the trauma in females. And so
Ah.
that brings it to the surface in
Mhm.
reflection. But because your light is coming from a very high point, it's going to reflect aspects that just start coming up that have never
Right.
been come up. They've never had a safe enough, strong enough, dominant, penetrating light coming
Mhm.
in that have made it safe enough to open. And
Mm.
that opening is the healing, but it's very easy then to blame, to judge,
Mhm.
to project onto
Right.
you rather than understanding that's an illumination of
Mhm.
a piece of inner work that needs to be worked through. And you're not the baddie. You're
Right.
the illuminator of that trauma, of
Absolutely.
that material that's come up in the lineage. It could be
Mhm.
very subliminal kind of wife, husband distortions of unhappiness or abuse or violence that's coming out that's been hidden and like shielded like in that cloud
Mhm.
from people actually really seeing what they live out.
Mhm.
And so as a male, growing in this power to penetrate with light these places in the opposite gender, that it's really understanding that that mechanism will be triggered, I think, in my female clients, and becoming a safe foil to hold
Right.
space for that and to help them to work that through without attaching that sexual bonding into the relationship. So it's understanding that that might happen, and forewarning is forearmed, etc.
So again, guys, be aware as you go through, progress through your journeys. All right, we're just here to help. So, David, I'm sure you get experiences like that. Tell us a little bit about what you do, how your modalities changed before XI, and now using XI. By the way, he doesn't do what I do. I don't do what he does, but we both practice XI because XI is not a modality. It just makes whatever that you do to the highest, purest level state. Right? So tell us a little bit about what you do, what your passion is.
Yeah. So I tend to listen to where the person's issues are. And
Mhm.
through that relational training I've had as a psychotherapist, I'm listening out for where they
Mm.
are out of sync in time and space,
Right.
as well as therapeutically, what I can say interpersonally to address that. And then as I do that, I'm looking to see where are they out of alignment in, say, their masculinity, their femininity.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at polarity. I'm looking at that singularity. Where are they out of sync in time and space? So I think you've helped me to become more and more into scanning people and less into that slightly mergy empathy, where part of me is bleeding into the client's field in order to know what's going on for them, to bring it into me and sense it. And so my my work is evolving as I still work relationally and almost psychotherapeutically, but more and more to bring them faster and faster to that core level distortion that's the root of that relationship problem. And then I can't quite move it as you do, so I might talk them into their body and get them to experience almost like a mini meditation in a session where I I don't edit them, but I encourage them to find that space in themselves because I can sense it and get them to move it.
Absolutely, and David, sometimes people really need that, that personal touch. Like I said, I'm just like a surgeon. I see that what's going on. I disconnect it. I might not have the best bedside manner or post post surgery, but like David here would be fantastic, or even like David before, would be fantastic. So your session with me would work a lot better. And I just want to get to the point, David. So that what you what you said is most people who help other people, whether again, whether what you do, psychotherapists, doctors, people who care for other people, they have empathy, and then what they do is they read by putting themselves into that person's shoes, or putting that person into their shoes. And then it creates a lot of residue in you. And this is where you get ill. That's where you were, right? You were ill. You were getting all the other, you know, negative patterns, emotions of other people while you were helping people. So what I guess the biggest lesson that we could take away amongst many that I've helped you with, again, a teacher's teacher, is that I've taught you, or through XI, you've learned how to observe and analyze people more precisely, actually, because you don't have. It's not your filters that you're seeing anything or anybody through. It's just their filters. Would that be fair to say? Where
Yes.
there's no interaction between the two of you. There's no like exchange of frequencies. It's just like I see their frequencies out there, and then you don't get pummeled by the end of the day after working on however many people that you work on. That makes sense. And that's why
Absolutely.
you're turning more younger, more youthful, more vibrant. By the way, from what I see today, David, to compare to a few years ago when I actually saw you, you're more vibrant and you're just in time, buddy. Really nice job.
Thank you.
Really nice job. Let's see. Anything else as we get close to the end? What would you say to those individuals who are on the path, or what's happening now? I know we talked a little bit about it, and the reason why this interview came about is because, you know, is that when I last had a session with him, I mean, when he had a session with me, I said, there's no handrails for you anymore. This is where, you're on, say, your own. You can always come back and go higher, but I'm not there supporting you in any way. It's all you. Again, you can always come back and learn more. Talk a little bit about that experience, David.
I think in a way that's been the most nitty gritty, difficult aspect of really putting everything I've learned into action
Mhm.
and to be totally responsible
Right.
for what I'm creating. And it's where the rubber hits the tarmac. I think you can do XI and listen to Maz and detox and go through these levels, but then when you hit the phase where the handrails have gone, it's like it's the discipline, it's the maintaining trajectory, maintaining velocity of that singularity of focus that I've
Right.
built over the years, and knowing the sort of sensing the traps that are going to pull me out of presence and like alignment by being in my own body. That sense of grasping at life or blaming life for what's happening to me, and noticing that as that breaks open, I see like that ability to almost program the weave of my life, almost affect how areas that I've always assumed were me are
Mhm.
just starting to dissolve. And it's applying XI to these next levels that I think is the really exciting part that I'm just beginning to open up. It's like, whoa, that's when you get those tectonic shifts that are very subtle
Right.
because I've done all that deep, messy kind of detoxing, and it's the
Mhm.
nuance of understanding how these higher frequencies can break these big tectonic plates down so that I become the co-creator with source. I become the infinite spark having this human experience. And I think that's what XI prepares you for. It's
Mhm.
how I manage myself in almost like the blue screen or the what's what they call it, the green screen.
Green
And
screen.
then you can design almost the graphics, the interplay of your life. And that's the freedom. But with freedom comes total responsibility.
Mhm.
And I think that's what XI prepares you for.
Absolutely, and that's what it's all about, uh, guys. And again, the handrails are basically me or uh, XI Logistics holding on to you as you learn. And I can safely say that no other modality, whatever that you do, allows you to be as free as XI does, where you're just limitless. Literally, once you get to that certain level where you can be on your own, this is where the potentiality of you starts to come in. Would you not agree, my friend?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, David, thank you so much. Any closing words um, that you want to share? Contact information if people want to get a hold of you.
Um, I'd say that you're going to be hard pushed to find a man in delivering these kind of messages and the purity as Maz has here that has helped me to really reclaim myself. Um, Stick with Maz and go through those detox experiences, go through those dark nights of the soul, because when you come out the other side, if you can maintain that momentum, that's when you really make the shifts. It's almost like one of the key places where most people give up is when they're right at the doorway of
Mm,
pushing through. I've seen clients, my clients, just leave at that moment and they're back to the buffet. And
mm,
that's when you're most likely to give up. And that's when you're actually going to push on everything that's holding you in that ring pass, not that dark cloud, and to actually punch through it. That's what takes that little bit extra. And I think Maz is like a steam train, like, he's just like powering through. And by attuning to his work, it's helped me to kind of power through those blind spots that I don't know what I would have done had I not had you to lean on and to, support me in those moments.
wonderful. Wow. This is Masajati. We've been listening to David Stone on the Ascendance, the Awakening, the XI Factor. Thanks for watching.